Morning friends, and welcome back to Miles to Go Before I Sleep once again. Today is day 3 of my St. Petersburg journey, and today I am going to Peterhof, Grand Peterhof Palace. Peterhof is around 35 kilometers away from my place of residence here in St. Petersburg. I booked a taxi from Yandex. The journey will take around 1 hour. Expected fare is around 1000 rubles, and my ride is here. Here in Russia, almost all the drivers are from nearby countries, primarily from CIS countries like Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, etc. And they don't know English. They know Russian very well. So to communicate with them is really difficult unless you have basic knowledge of Russian. So that you have to keep in mind. Today's weather is not at all sunny, as expected. Rather, it's quite cold. Well, I didn't plan to wear jacket in St. Petersburg, since the climate was really hot and the temperature was hovering around 20 to 22, but the weather changed suddenly 2 days ago when we saw snowfall in the month of May, which is really unusual even from Moscow. And just look how beautifully they have decorated and maintained the river banks. So after about 1 hour, I reached Peterhof, and the driver dropped me near about 300 meters away from the ticket counter. The vehicles could go to that extent only, and I purchased entry ticket of 2000 rubles per person. And that's not all. In order to visit some of the specific places or buildings inside Peterhof, you need to purchase another tickets. So it is quite expensive to visit Peterhof actually, even by Russian standards, I would say. Peterhof is the monument of world architecture and park art. This museum reserve, located 29 km from the city on the southern coast of the Gulf of Finland, includes the palace and the park ensemble of 18th to 19th centuries. There is a formal royal countryside residence. Peterhof is the city of fountains. It contains 173 fountains and 4 cascades. Each year, up to 3 million people come here to enjoy the splendor of numerous fountains, unique parks and pavilions. The name Peterhof was first mentioned in 1705. It was a coastal manor, close to which construction of a grand country residence started 9 years later. The original plan of the construction belongs to Peter I. After the brilliant victory of Russian troops over the Swedish army, the security of St. Petersburg, both from the land and the sea, has been firmly ensured. Since that time, the works on the construction of the Peterhof residence gained immense scope. To the present day, there are preserved autographic drawings of the emperor with his notes and corrections and other documents confirming that Peter I was not only engaged in the general layout of the Peterhof ensemble but also developed some details of architectural structures and fountains. The works on the creation of a new residence were conducted with amazing rapidity. The opening ceremony of Peterhof took place already in August 1723, and by this time there was laid the lower park, the sea canal was dug, a part of fountains functioned, the upper chambers were decorated, and the Mont Plaisir and Marly palaces were built. According to the plan of Peter I, on the one hand, Peterhof must have been equal in splendor with the most famous royal residences in Europe, and on the other hand, to become a monument of triumphant success of Russia's struggle to access the Baltic Sea. Both were successfully done. There was built the Great Palace on a natural edge and then rebuilt on the Baroque style by architect Francesco Bartolomeo Rastrelli in the mid-18th century. According to the plan of Peter I, who wanted to decorate the main entrance of the palace with waterfalls, there was constructed the Grand Cascade, a huge cave, the sides of which were richly decorated with a waterfall staircase. This is one of the most spectacular fountains in the world, the compositional center of which is the famous Samson fountain with a statue of the biblical Samson tearing the lion's mouth. This fountain has become a symbol of the Russian victory over Sweden. The lion was part of the coat of arms of Sweden, and Peter I was often compared to Samson. The Samson is the highest fountain in Peterhof, the jet of which can rise up to 20 meters high. In 1990, the palaces and parks of Peterhof were included in the list of World Heritage of UNESCO. In 1997, Peterhof was included in the state code of the most valuable objects of the cultural heritage of Russia. This is the Gulf of Finland, and it's just so soothing to be here. You can just chill out and spend an entire day just sitting here looking at the Gulf of Finland. But it was a very cold day, an unusual cold day in May, so I could not stay for more than 15 minutes here. In 1714, Peter began construction of the Mont Plaisir Palace based on his own sketches. He chalked out not only the side but also the inside layout some elements of the decorative finishes. This was Peter's summer retreat that he would use on his way coming and going from Europe through the harbour at Kronstadt. On the walls of this seacoast palace hung hundreds of paintings that Peter brought from Europe and allowed to weather Russian winters and the dampness of the sea without heat. In the seaward corner of the Mont Plaisir Palace, Peter made his maritime study from which he could see Kronstadt Island to the left and St. Petersburg to the right. From this part of Peterhof, you can go back to St. Petersburg via cruise, which will take you across the Gulf of Finland as well as the Neva River. The cost of ticket per person is 1500 to 2000 depending on the type of cruise. Since I had already done the river cruise yesterday on day 2 of my journey, I didn't go for it. The Grand Cascade is modeled on one constructed for Louis XIV at his Château de Marly, that is the French royal residence, which is likewise memorialized in one of the park's outbuildings. At the center of the cascade is an artificial grotto with 2 stories faced inside and out with hewn brown stone. It currently contains a modest museum of the fountain's history. The fountains of the Grand Cascade are located below the grotto and either side of it. There are 64 fountains. Their waters flow into a semicircular pool, the terminus of the fountain-lined sea channel. In the 1730s, the large Samson fountain was placed in this pool. It depicts the moment when Samson tears open the jaws of a lion, representing Russia's victory over Sweden in the Great Northern War. Perhaps the greatest technological achievement of Peterhof is that all of the fountains operate without the use of pumps. Water is supplied from natural springs and collects it in reservoirs in the upper gardens. The elevation difference creates the pressure that drives most of the fountains of the lower gardens, including the Grand Cascade. You can see the long queue before entrance of the main palace. I had to stand in the queue for about an hour to get the tickets. I did a mistake. I roamed around the other parts of Peterhof before coming here, whereas I should have bought the tickets for the palace first. Then I could have roamed around the other parts, or I could have covered the other parts after visiting the palace also, because this is the main attraction of the Peterhof and it's a national holiday, so the crowd is huge. So after buying tickets of 1500 ruble per person, I finally get inside the palace. Here you have to mandatorily deposit your jackets as well as put a shoe cover also. And audio tips about the palace is given in Russian, but since it was of no use to me, I didn't take them. The largest of Peterhof's palaces looks imposing when seen from the lower or upper garden, but in fact it is quite narrow and not overly large. The Cheshma Hall is decorated with 12 large paintings of the Battle of Cheshma, a stunning naval victory of the Russo-Turkish War of 1768 to 1774. These were painted between 1771 and 1773 by the German artist Jacob Philipp Hackert. His first renderings of the great battle scenes were criticized by witnesses as not showing realistically the effect of exploding ships, the flying timbers, the great flames, smoke, and fireballs. The East and West Chinese cabinets were decorated between 1766 and 1769 to exhibit objects of the decorative art imported from the East. The walls were decorated with imitation Oriental patterns by Russian craftsmen and hung with Chinese landscape paintings in yellow and black lacquer. Another room positioned at the center of the palace bears the name of the picture hall. Good thing about this palace is that beside every item, a short description of the item is given in Russian as well as English also. At the end there is a souvenir shop also. It was 5 or 5:30 in the evening, and you can still see the long queues before entrance of the palace. While returning, I chose to come via public transport. It took me about 2 hours 10 to 15 minutes to reach St. Petersburg. Just outside the Grand Peterhof Palace, you get bus. About half an hour bus journey, you get down at the Aptovo metro stop. From there, you go to Nevskaya, and from Nevskaya metro station, you can take a bus to St. Petersburg. Stay tuned, and if you like the video, please like, share and subscribe to help me grow. Thank you.